So, welcome back. Now, yesterday we did a good bit of just again like tweaking, like so. Yeah, I mean, just like to reiterate a little bit, I don't like to go over the entire process every time we stream, but um, basically, look, the main thing that we did yesterday was we kind of went in and created some more variation and some more just tricks and stuff just to make it sound interesting, like, because obviously, as you say, every time it's a loopy track, but it's it's a loopy genre, I suppose, is the best way to put it. But there's ways and ways of making that more and more interesting, and that's kind of the part of the process we're at the moment. Now, what I mentioned yesterday was getting a couple of reference tracks there, right? So reference tracks, I suppose, are for me anyway, the way I use them is they're something to kind of not so much kind of like compare your track to from this song better than another, but more so like sonic equivalents. So like, say, if I like the sound of drums in a particular track, then I would be inclined to use that track to mix my drums as a reference to, and it comes with all the different elements and vibes and all that stuff. Now, one thing I'll say about picking a reference track is ideally you'd get the vibe right anyway, you know what I mean? So like the first and foremost is you want the tune to be basically something that like is essentially the same genre as the music you're making, because there's no point in really picking a track that's a rock tune and you're making techno or whatever. It's not really going to work out. So this first tune I picked here is called Tenebra. I can't remember who it's by, but it's a bit of a banger. I'm sure the old DCMA will pick it up anyway. But it's kind of like deep house, but also a bit up tempo. It's the same BPM as the track I'm making. Similar vibe, I would say. The only thing is that they're not the same key, and sometimes having your tracks in the same key for referencing is quite helpful. Now, it's not a million miles away. I know this one is the one I'm making is C sharp minor, which is 12A, I think, in the Camelot wheel, and I think this one then is like 9A or something. So whatever key that is, but also it's not too far off as far as like general keys and harmony goes. Now, what I've done is I just clipped this as we were chatting away. I just clipped the intro of it because it was slightly off, so like there's a little bit of a pause at the start. So what I did is I just dragged the kick to be fairly close to the line there, and that's that really. It's on there. So that's the reason why. Sorry, I did that was because I want to be able to A/B this. So I want to be able to play my track and then just mute my track and then go straight into this track, and I want them to still be in time with each other and that. So that's one of the reasons I did it. This one here below is probably going to need the same thing. Both are fairly deep tracks. Actually, that one's pretty much, it's not far off. We'll just see what the gap at the start is. Let's see, get rid of that fade. Don't need that. Yeah, I might just, I'm sure there might be a little bit we could do, but yeah, that'll do. Okay, so we have the tracks here, right? So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to find the level of that we need to put them at, because if I have my reference track at like if it's way too loud, then obviously the A-Bing is going to be somewhat uncomfortable in that you turn off your tune and then you enable one of the reference tracks and it blows the head off you. Secondly, that volume increase does give an illusion of better sound quality in that, so it's worth your while. It is really worth your while just kind of making sure that they're balanced, because you don't want that false perception of improvement by hearing something louder and thinking, God, why is my track so crap? And it's like, well, it's because your reference track is mastered. And like, I mean, look at the peaks on that. Like, I mean, if you're to say that, like, going up above that grey line there, going from light grey to dark grey is a peak, and if that peak was to go any higher than that line, it would be clipping, like, and like, I mean, that is basically as loud as you can get, like, do you know what I mean? So it's not a fair comparison to belt out a mastered tune that's at like an industry standard loudness compared to something that's not even been mixed yet. So what we'll do is we're going to work on our tune a bit. We're going to then dip into our referencing a little bit. So like I'm going to listen to my drums. I'm going to be like, okay, they all sound clean. Then I'm going to listen to the drums of the other track and I'm like, right, what can I improve in mine that will make it sound comparable to this one? And obviously having balanced the volumes and all that kind of stuff as well. So I'm going to just listen back to the tune itself there first, and we'll do a bit of work on it, I'd say, in a minute or two, or maybe as we're going, and I'll jump back on the mic then in a couple of minutes and chat a bit further about referencing. Clippy boy. Cool, yeah. I think that's enough of the tune. It's good to get it fresh in your... Oh, man, what's going on at Reaper here? Oh, we got this, that. Ah, that's why. Okay. Might be a little bit lower there now, but at least it's not dirty. So, yeah, basically, look, what I like to do there is just to get the sound of the tune back into my head, right before we go working on it. particularly if we're going to go and do anything that's in relation to mixing. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not the mixing process itself now. Like, this is, the old Nikon boy. So, yeah, like, just to reiterate there, the mixing process is going to be its own thing, right? But it's absolutely no harm to kind of get the idea, to get some just work done while you're still in the production process in regards to mixing. I do like to separate the two. I don't like this whole kind of mixing while you produce. Now, don't get me wrong, I do it myself. I do EQ, I do compress while I'm producing, which in theory and technically is actually mixing. But, I kind of like to just have a bit of a guide as I'm going, particularly with tunes that I do like. So what I'll do is I'll play I'll flick through it. Probably the first tune. Again, like, lads, I don't know if this is going to be able to stay on, if I can drop this on YouTube or anything after, but copyrighting copyrighted material on streams, it's a red flag. Like, so I can't say this is a wise thing to be doing on a stream, but look, chance it anyway. We're learning. If something goes wrong, we'll know for next time. That's how I look at it. So yeah, I'm gonna just play some reference tracks and might A/B between all of them and just kind of come back on, talk through it a little bit, and I'll give you my thoughts on where to go from there. Cool. Okay. So just having done a quick flick through there, like one of the main things I kind of picked up on that was different from my tracks to the reference tracks. Just double checking. Yeah, cool. So definitely I found that in my tracks there's I like the crispiness of the drums, you know, i.e. like the high end, and you know they're quite saturated sounding, which is cool. But one thing I will say is I feel like they're using like crazy more reverb on their tunes, you know. There's definitely a lot more spatial effects going on, which I, you know, it's one of those things. It's kind of like, oh, it needs more reverb. Okay, you know, I'm, you know, that's not a big ask at all. It's kind of one of those things you'd be delighted to throw on. Achieving it in as cleanly as they're, you know, those two tracks, they're really good. Like, you know, they're really nice production. Like they're, you know, if you're into the kind of dubby house, kind of washed out synthy stabs, you know, they're two prime tracks. But what I would say is they have a lot more sub action going on there as well. Now I have a sub bass as well, so I might attack the low end first, and I'll show you how I kind of like to do this, and then we'll go and do the mids after, because the way it is, right, is lows and highs are really important to an extent, right? Like if you want thump, which you do in a track like this, your lows have to be mint. If you want like clean, lovely sounding track, your highs have to be pristine. If your mids are lacking though, you can ruin a track with just bad mids, you know. So, and I've done so many times, and it's something I'm working on a lot. Like one of the things at the moment that I'm working on is just purely my mid-range elements, and why don't my mid-range elements sound like as good as other tracks, you know? So what I'll do is I'll show you how I kind of tackle that stuff, and you know, again, there mightn't be a whole lot of chatting here as I'm mixing it, but I'll try to do it, come back, talk, do it, come back, talk, you know, all that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm going to just do a little bit of work here now. What I'm actually going to do, just to clarify, sorry, first of all, is to work on the low end, right? What I'm going to do is drop an EQ on here first. Sure, I may as well chat you through this part first anyway. Just double check we're working here. I don't trust my setup. I mean, it's perfect. Like, it hasn't let me down once, but I'm still one of those people. Like, not that I don't trust my setup, more that I don't trust myself to make sure it works fine. I keep thinking I'm going to forget to record, or you know, have like one of the cameras off, like with the timer on the camera. You see, it's one of those things you can't just sit back and kind of relax and work away. You kind of have to double check that everything's not shat itself. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 EQs here, right? So I'm going to make 3 of them, right? First one is going to be just, all you're going to hear from this is everything that's under 150 hertz, right? So that's how I do it, right? Now I'm going to disable this one. Well, actually, John, I'll put the points in first. We're going to go from 250, let's see here now, 250 hertz to, I'd say, that's probably a bit high, I'd say 2.5K. So we'll say that, and we'll change it to low pass. And finally then what we're going to do is the exact opposite of our first one. We're just going to have a high pass, and we're going to put it up at 2,500. And that's it. So obviously you want to disable these because we want to work on the bass first. So I'm going to solo our track. Oh, now I'm going to have to drop off because I do want to do this on the monitors here rather than on my headphones. So yeah, look, basically I'll do a bit of work here, come back before we do the mid-range, and then I'll come back and before we do the high. And yeah, should be good. Also, no harm, to be honest, in this one here, this utility it's called mono. I'm just going to rename it -3, and this one is actually meant to be mono. Now it's on and off. I actually don't better do it that way. So this one is just bringing down our master out to give us a bit of headroom there, particularly with the levels on the stream. It's hard to get my vocal that bit louder than the audio from Ableton, so without gaining it up and clipping and all the rest. So I'm just going to take a little bit down off here. I don't want to do it off the fader. I want to leave that at minus, or at 0. So this one here is -3. So that's just taking -3 off the top. This is a mono. So if I enable that, it puts our entire master. This is all this stuff is on our master channel here, right? So mono, EQ below everything under 150, everything between 150 and 2.5K, and then everything above 2.5K. So there won't be a whole lot of action above 10. Like I was chatting to like a hearing specialist before, and he was like, anything above 10 isn't considered like normal hearing, like day to day. Now that's not to say that you know, if you lose everything above 10, you won't sound all weird, but you know, it is one of those things that like in production you could kind of get away with not having much kind of going on above 15 anyway, I'd say. Like I can't hear above 13 and a half, you know, which is not good obviously, but it's just how it is. So yeah, it's one of those things. Like you could probably low pass this, but the EQ curve could make it sound kind of muffled as well, like, because the curves are never perfect. Like they're never straight, no matter what you use. Even if you use Fab Filter or the Slate Infinity EQ, I'll just give you a quick look at that one, so you get my point. But Slate Infinity, it's a good EQ. I mean, a lot of people complain that it's not quite as good as Fab Filter, understandably as well, given that, you know, Fab Filter has dynamic EQ and all the rest. But see the curves you can achieve with this one. Like, I mean, I can just make that like that, you know, which is far more of just a tighter cutoff than the Ableton one. But look, to be honest with you, for this type of thing, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference, really. That's my honest opinion. So, that's fine. What we'll do is we might throw one more EQ. Now all of these are going to be bypassed as well. Like, so, you know, these are just functional tools. This isn't like a mix bus chain or anything like that. So don't think like, oh, this is all what goes on the master bus. Because to be honest, I don't do anything on mine. I actually leave that for a mastering engineer. And a mastering engineer even said to me, he was like, you know, feel free to do that. You know, feel free to actually, you know, put some stuff on your master. And I was kind of like, you know, I'm good for that. I'd happily let him run it through his SSL, like mix bus compressor stereo, and get the lush, lovely saturation and compression from that, as opposed to trying to emulate it myself with the plugins, which I could do. And if I was doing something where I wasn't going to be sending it off to mastering engineer, I probably would do that myself. But honestly, this way this is all the stuff's going to get deleted before I render this version. So, Grant, I'm going to drop off the mic and going to go to our, I'm going to go back to my monitors and mix this, come back to you in a few minutes then. Right, so yeah, that was the low end. A couple of moments had in there, like where I was kind of like, oh, this sounds a bit better. Something I forgot to do is I kind of tweaked it with the low pass filter on, and then never referenced the low pass on the other tracks. Then I went back and did it, and it all kind of made a bit more sense. So I think it's quite clean there the way it is. Now, as I said, look, this isn't the mix. This is kind of like just ballpark kind of a section. So we've done the low end. I'm gonna move on and do the mid, and then chat a bit, come back and do the high, and we'll see how we get on from there. Right. So, oops, kill that. So yeah, couple of things there, I suppose. So there's definitely a difference in the mix anyway. Whether or not it's better, I don't know, but it definitely is. Helping off our reference. Now, one thing I did do there that's worth noting. I did say it, but just in case you didn't spot it, the entire time I was doing all that, I had my mix in mono. So it might actually sound quite more. If you've been listening to this with headphones on, you'll be like, Jesus, what was going on there? Whereas when I unmono it, it should sound a bit more real life, say. Besides that, right, there's one other thing that I did do before we started was I actually rendered a version of the track the way it was before I actually had done any of this work, like before I started streaming, basically. So yesterday's track essentially is its own bounce. Now, that in itself is a handy thing because, say if I was like, okay, the work I just did there sounds terrible when I look at it later, if I come to that conclusion, I have the other version. Now, it's a different project, so there'd be a certain amount of undoing, but that's why I grouped everything. So, okay, so just to take that from the start, right? As I was going along there, I was grouping the effects that were already on channels and then adding EQs. That was it, basically. A couple of compressors, mostly EQs, right? Now, I also rendered the track before I did any of that. So what I can do now is I can just basically undo everything that I just did there if I decide against keeping the way it was. Now, I did save several times throughout that, so, good luck to the former project. Saving a copy would have been the best way to do this, but I did make a bounce so that I could basically go between this new slightly mixed version, the version from yesterday, and then the 2 reference tracks. And that's the kind of thing now that I'd say get in your car, drive for 20 minutes, listen to all of them, take a note, in your head as you're going, or, pull in obviously and take notes. And then come back to your studio monitors and headphones and all this and make those adjustments. So that's kind of that, right? What I am going to do is I'm just going to listen to the full tune here and flick through the reference tracks again, but I'm not going to have it in mono, and hopefully it sounds a bit better. And maybe people who are watching this are like, Jesus Christ, you're after ruining your tune. Like, hopefully no one feels that way. I personally think it sounds pretty good the way it is. Now, there might be some adjustments, like I can hear that 303 is kind of flying around the place there, which could be to do with anything that I just did there. Like, I mean, there's a couple of bumps in the EQ, like, so, and I did take off all this processing on the mix, on the group. That mightn't have been a bad idea. We'll leave it on for now. One of those things, what I'll do is I'll actually re-enable them all, group them, so Command G, and then just turn the group off, close this, and then if I say, God, what happened to my bass, then I know to come back, turn that on, and it should hopefully complement some of the tweaks that I made here. Now, I definitely feel like there is a compressor doing a hell of a lot of work on the 303 throughout the tune there, and because like when I went back to it there, it was bouncing around the place and I had the resonance up quite high, so whatever compression there is probably not happening anymore. So I might have to revisit that, or tweak the automation, or if I wanted to just leave it to the mixing process and just compress the shit out of it in the mix. But yeah, we're going to listen back to the full tune, and I might A/B between the reference tracks, kind of flick on and off the band pass and low and high pass filters, and just see what it sounds like. Right. So that takes us up to time here. Yeah, definitely think it could be a bit better now at this stage from just having that tweak. Definitely when you flip it back from mono into stereo, there's a kind of moment of like, oh yeah, nice. So it sounds pretty good. I definitely think that I need to spend a bit more time working on it before we mix it, but I feel like there's a pretty good balance there at the moment. Um, One thing I would say is the bass. I'm definitely starting to notice a bit of a lack there. I don't know if it's the tune or something, but I was messing around with the sub there and could have kind of felt like dissatisfied by the end of it. So I might have to revisit that to an extent at some point, maybe tomorrow. I don't think that's something you're going to fix in a mix. Like, it's not that that's a good thing, obviously, but kind of thing that might work out. But yeah, we'll have another look tomorrow, and hopefully we'll see a bit more progress. So yeah, hopefully that was some bit educational or beneficial to anyone. Hopefully we don't get DCMA'd for the copyrighted content, but I don't know, they're fairly heavily filtered at most of them anyway, most times, so it's probably grand. But yeah, that's it. Thanks very much.